So I'd like to welcome you this evening. This is the 2014 State of the Schools Address. And I want to get right into it because I'm hoping to have this session completed in less than an hour from my point. And I'd like for you, if you have questions, to feel free to do that. And we learned a little bit last year that it went kind of long, so I want to kind of trim it down this year. But certainly, I don't want to have you leave without answering any question that you may have about any information that I'm going to share with you this evening. This is broken, so this I'm going to be using to point, and so you have to bear with me. I want to go through the agenda this evening, and you have a vision pamphlet in your hand that we just passed out. It's a trifold. Everything that we do in our school district is guided by the vision, and the vision is preparing our students for their futures. That is our vision. And everything within that vision, all the goals, all the objectives, are all aligned to achieve that. And in the pamphlet that you have, that you can also see online at our district's website, that gives you a sense of what's in there. And it's about achievement and performance, human resources and accountability, finance and stewardship of the district, engagement and responsiveness. Those are the four major goal areas of our school district that are aligned with our strategic vision, that set the stage for all of the decisions that we make in all of our programming. Tonight, what I'd like to do is similar to what we did last year. I want to talk about the district's performance, our student achievement. I want to talk about the economics of the school district, and I want to talk a little bit about the realities that we have in our school district when you sort of put those pieces together. From a performance perspective, most of you in the room remember Excellent with Distinction. All school districts across the state of Ohio for about 13 years were in this particular Ohio grade card metric, if you will. And what was difficult for people is they couldn't quite put a pointer, if you will, on what is Excellent with Distinction. So the state of Ohio decided to go back to something that was more recognizable by the people of Ohio. And so they went to the typical ABC grade card that we're all familiar with. So we have been an Excellent with Distinction district for many, many years. And you see that last year when we talked about this, we had earned an A. One of those A's comes from Performance Index. And the Performance Index is how well your students do on Ohio Achievement Tests in grades 3 through 8 and also grades 9 and 10. And then the second A that we have up there is for standards. There are 24 educational standards that students are required to pass at a percentage point decided by the state of Ohio. And we received an A in that, in all 24. There are two others. One is graduation, and the other is attendance. And we received A's in both of those. So this year, how did we do? We've again, in those particular areas, gained 2 A's. So once again, the district is performing and continues to improve its performance. I want to talk a little bit about that this evening. That performance index on that sheet that you have in front of you, without getting too technical, the performance index is all of the students in your school take tests. And they earn in these categories right here, how well they do on the test. And they are weighted tests, so if you have an advanced score, you're weighted at a 1.2, down to if you have a student that's untested, you get 0 and 0.3. So all of the students in our school district take a test at the Ohio Achievement Test. And then they add up all of those weighted points, and it gives us a ranking here of 108.4. The most points a school district can earn is 120. So when you divide 108.4 by 120, you come up with a 90.4%, and that is how our district earns its A in the performance index model. Some things I'd like for you to see or key in on is about 71.6% of our students are earning in the advanced and accelerated score level. 94% of our students are earning proficient or above in this particular school district. And we see right here, and we'll talk about this a little bit later this evening, there are about 6% of the students that we don't believe are performing at a level that we would like to have them perform at. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So on the performance index, I think it's important for you to get a sense of where are all of our schools in the school district. because that performance index is based on all students, but how do each of these student bodies do in each of the buildings that we send information to the state of Ohio? So if you look back in 2010, you can see, if you have a child in any one of these schools or more than one of these schools, you can see where our performance index rating was at that particular time. And then you can see the increase over to 2014, which is this school year, 13-14. Is where the new data comes from. Now, some have increased more than others, but the bottom line here is that in every single school in our district, we have improved over the last 5 years, and that's important when we consider talking with our community about student performance, talking with our community about students being prepared for life after our school system, college and career readiness type things. But there's more about our school district that I think is important. And while you're looking at this particular slide, the district has put together a quality profile. And when you leave this evening, we're going to hand you one of these. Obviously, if I gave it to you now, it would become more important than me. That's okay, but I'd like for you to stay with me just for a little bit. What you'll learn when you take a look at this particular document. We believe in the state of Ohio that assessment, that accountability is important, that student performance on Ohio Achievement Tests are important, and all the other metrics that are rated at the Ohio Department of Education. But we also believe that our community has a higher expectation of us, that our community expects other things to be part of our school system and offered to our students. And so I want to highlight a few things that you would see when you leaf through this document this evening when you go home. 82% of the staff members in our school district, 82% have earned a master's degree. That helps with this particular chart that's behind me. 106 of our teachers, which is the most in the state of Ohio, have earned a master's teacher's degree. The master teacher, which requires teachers to go above and beyond portfolio type work, professional development, things like that. 85% of the students in our school district participate in extracurricular activities, which we believe is essential for the comprehensiveness of their education in our schools. Our students perform among the state's best in reading, mathematics, in the top 4% of all students in the state of Ohio. 22 students in this last year's class, 22 students earned scholarships to play in athletic competition at the college level. 73% of the students in our school district that take AP courses are earning college credit by earning a 3 or higher. That equates to more than $500,000 that their parents don't need to pay for college when they go on to the next level. 23 students in our school earned 430 college semester hours last year with PSEO, which is post-secondary educational options, providing them college credit at the high school level. Once again, 430 credits that do not cost their parents any additional dollars. 10 students last year were recognized by the National Merit Organization. We've been a National Merit School, have had children involved in that, and have been acknowledged and awarded in 58 straight years. Last year, part of the additional things that happened in our school district, $57,000 was provided to our students in our classrooms through the foundation for grants and opportunities for students to have scholarships. Last year, $135,000 was provided to the school district from the PSO. Our band and athletic boosters organizations raise $100,000 a year. We have a solid, very well thought of and acceptable beekeepers program for preschool students. We also have preschool in our elementary schools, and last year we received certification to run our new preschool. We have Kappa, we have Huddle, we have DARE, and those are each opportunities for students to be involved in things about safety and security and drugs and alcohol and the use of that and how to avoid those things. And so we have many, many types of things that are going on in our school district that attribute to these scores. We just don't worry about only test scores in the Brecksville-Broadview Heights City Schools. But we do have a state report card. And we have to acknowledge the fact that beyond our walls, we are being judged or rated by a system that has 9 report card grades. So if you were in school and you look at your report card, there's all of your grades. Well, here are all of ours. There's a couple of places we want to key in. Not to suggest that the A's aren't important, but we're about continuous improvement. And I want you to take a look at the B that we have there, and it's in gap closing. And gap closing measures the academic performance of specific groups of students within your schools on racial, ethnic, and demographic data. So what we're taking a look at here is how all of our students perform, and then in those breakdowns, is there any particular group that is not performing as well? And so we have a B in that particular score, and I will, or that grade, and I will come back to that in a few minutes. The next one that we have is a grade of a C, and this is a growth model. And the growth model, did students gain a year of growth in a particular year? And this is also broken down into 4 subgroups, and I'll show that to you in a few minutes. On the gap closing, this may look difficult for you to see from a distance, but all of those groups that I talked about, Asian, white, economic disadvantaged, African American, students with disabilities, Hispanic, all students in our school district, limited English students, and multicultural students. On the gap closing, let me switch. The state of Ohio requires an 85%. These are all of our subgroups. Down here, you can see the white bar is an indication of special needs identified students in our school district. So you see that we are not performing at that state level. In reading over here, you see the same thing happening with our special needs students in our school district. And so for us in the Brecksville-Broadview Heights City Schools, this has become important for us to focus on this particular school year. So what do we focus on when we're focusing on special needs students? Our inclusion programming, where we're trying to place students with special needs in front of content specialists, not to suggest that our intervention specialists and our aides in classrooms that are with students aren't doing a good job. We want the students to be in classrooms with experts in content area. We're also writing IEPs a little bit differently than we have in the past. We're putting the standards from the state of Ohio, content standards, in the IEPs, Individual Education Plan. So we're doing more things to provide more intense expectations for students in the classrooms. You've heard about the district's PLC time, placing special education teachers on teams with regular education teachers so they can talk about formative assessments with students, which is the day-to-day assessments that are taking place, progress monitoring those students, talking with each other about what's best for students and how our instructional strategies are influencing the performance of students. And so you will see these types of things to address special needs students throughout our school district. All of our administrative personnel have goals established around this. All of our building continuous improvement plans have goals around this. The Board of Education has a board work plan specific to response to intervention and assisting special needs students. So we're on to this, so to speak, and we're going to be working very hard this year to reduce the gap that exists between our special needs students and our regular education population and other groups that we have that we are measured by. The next one is growth. Did students earn a year's growth in a year? And this chart hopefully will give you an indication in those 4 major areas. The blue represents the largest population in the school. Here's the performance index. Remember before that we said the district has earned a 108.4. This line talks about, did students gain a year's growth in a year? So here's our full school population at 108.4. You can see it's in the quadrant that we want it to be in and very high in that quadrant. 30% of the students in our school district are gifted or identified as gifted. This green bubble represents gifted students in our school district. The gifted students, remember the highest score that you can achieve is a 120. Our gifted students are achieving a 116 on the performance index. So you can see that our gifted students, our regular education students are all up here in the top right-hand corner, and this 116 is very high performance, very high performance. This bubble, we talked about special education students before, although they are not necessarily meeting the state's 85% mark, they are growing a year in a year. So there's good things happening with our special education students, and this represents about 10% of the student population in our building. So although on one of those metrics we weren't doing so well and it's identified as a gap, in this particular situation, we see that our special needs students are moving a year in a year's time, and that's very good for us as a school district. The yellow bubble represents the smallest group. These are the students who experience the most difficulty with the curriculum. These are called, in the state of Ohio, the lowest 20% of students. And it's a horrible tag to put with a group of students, but it's the students who experience the most difficulty. The lowest 20% represents the average in the state of Ohio. If you think about that for a second, our lowest 20% perform much higher than what the state considers to be the lowest 20%. But the students in our school district who are identified as the average in the state of Ohio are gaining a C in their year-to-year progress. Now, C is meeting the standard. It is proficient. So it's not as though these students are not gaining a year. They're gaining just about what they should be gaining, but in relation to the rest of the students in our school district, we want to move them up. We want to continue to move as many students as we can into this quadrant. And so on the growth aspect, that's what we're trying to do. And we have a lot of things taking place in the school district. Clearly, we want to move these students up the ladder. Our PLC movement that we have in the district, where we have teachers talking with teachers, our response to intervention that I talked about a few minutes ago. And this is important because we want to be very consistent with the way we identify students who are experiencing difficulty. We want to be very consistent about communicating with each other about how those students are performing, what their achievement levels are, how they're performing on formative assessments, what's happening in the school on a day-to-day basis, and sharing that information back and forth. We want to have professional development for our staff to assist students who are experiencing difficulty, differentiation of instruction, regrouping kids, so forth and so on. And we have an exploratory schedule committee in our school district. If you think about the students, you have to consider, is the system set up so that students can perform well? So what we're taking a look at with the board's approval and their actually direction and guidance is to look at how our schedule is put together. And are there ways that we can get teachers together more often to talk about their profession, to talk about what's happening in their classrooms? Are there ways maybe with timing, the length of the day, when things are offered, when staff is available, to maybe provide better opportunities for this group of students, which will naturally elevate the entire student body? So performance, how are we doing? The A's, there are 7 of them in our school district. We have earned 1 B and we have earned 1 C. And when you put that together, it comes up with a grade point average of 3.66, which means in the state of Ohio, with all 611 schools, this district is ranked the 20th best school district in this particular metric. Now again, we are about accountability, but I want you to remember, we are also about local expectations and making sure that we're meeting those expectations on a daily basis. The next thing, is we are 5th in a comparison group. Well, there are 21 schools in our comparison group across the state. You'll see schools like Hudson, Upper Arlington, schools like that that are very much like our community that we have as established comparison groups in the state of Ohio. 2 of the school districts that are performing better than us, the 4 school districts that are performing, at least in this particular metric, better than us, are in Cuyahoga County. The other 2 are not. The 2 schools in Cuyahoga County that perform higher than us spend a good portion of money more than we do for students in the classroom. And that's important for us to consider. So now let's talk a little bit about the economics of the school district. We bring in and have brought in revenues at about $45 million, 45 to 46, right in that area for the last 10 years. We've been doing that. we have not had any additional funds coming to the district in that same 10-year period of time, and so you're not going to see any major spikes along the way. With a high bit of generosity and graciousness, we have passed our renewal levies, and we've passed some continuous levies, but we have not increased the local tax burden in the last 10 years. So here you see $45,200,000 that come in. I'd like to draw your attention to the big blue part of the circle. 71.45%, or about 71.5%, of all of the dollars that come into our school district from revenues are local taxes. And of that 71%, 78% of that comes from property taxes, local residential property taxes. That equates to about $25 million a year that comes into our school district from residential taxes. We receive $7.3 million from businesses, business tax within our community. So $32.3 million comes to us from local taxes. You see the sort of burnt orange piece of the pie. That's the state share, the foundation share. And what that is, based on, is for every student that we have, they suggest that we should receive about $5,800. The reality is we get about $1,100, almost $1,200 per student. So from the state each year, from the foundation to assist us, we get about $5.3 million a year. The other green is taxes, like utility taxes and tangible personal property taxes that come from businesses. It's kind of relief, but what you see here is 74% comes from local taxes, businesses, residential, and the other 25% comes from outside of the school district. It's important for you to know something. If a student or their family chooses to have their student take an online education or attend a charter school in the state of Ohio, the $1,100 that comes to us from the state of Ohio pays just $1,100. We send $5,800 with the student. So every time a family makes a choice to go to another institution, we lose about $4,600 or $4,700. And for our school district last year, with 40 students, it was about $290,000 that left the school district for 41 students. So you get a sense of that money and where it's going, or those resources. The next slide is expenditures. And if you look at the expenditures, the big blue part of the chart and the burnt orange part of the chart, that's our people. We're a service industry. It represents about 86% of the district's expenditure each year. The green piece of pie that you see, that's basically utilities, professional development experiences for our staff, special education tuition, students who are placed in other environments so that they can be successful. The slice that's purple, the light purple, about 2.8%. And I know those aren't big, but I wanted to try to just give you a sense of how our dollars are spent. That's spent on things like cleaning supplies and bus fuel. So you can see what portion of the pie up there is discretion spending. That little orange is shovels and etc. in there. The 0.41% that you see, that's auditing costs, tax collection. Believe it or not, we're charged the bill for collecting taxes. When they send us the taxes, they charge us for that. And then the very, very thin slice is ballot costs, what it costs for us to put things on the ballot, and also memberships like the Ohio School Board Association that we are affiliates with, the Ohio Schools Council that we are affiliated with, the Schools Alliance, all organizations that work with school districts to provide assistance on the legislative side of things, to help us make sure that in the center of the state, people are well aware of what's happening in Brecksville-Broadview Heights from an economic perspective. Do you have any idea what this is? Well, if you look, the 8 represents 2008, and the 21 represents 2021. This is our levy schedule for those years. Levy meaning our renewal levy schedule. And you will see that there are a couple of years, in 10 and 17, that there are no levies. But you will notice that in 9 And in 18 and in 21, there are 2 levies, renewal levies. And so the last 4 years, our Board of Education has been working extremely hard with helping educate the community about this particular set of circumstances. And so what we've done is we've come back to our community on several occasions, and we have asked to make the renewal levies continuous. These levies, as they are up there, represent about $25 million that we just talked about with the residential and business taxes. So what we've been able to do over the last 3 years is solidify the dollars that have been coming to the district. In some situations, levies have been passed 5 and 6 times. This is not a levy discussion tonight. I'm not asking you to vote yes or no on anything. What I'm showing you is the board's wisdom in helping end this long saga of why are we voting again? Why are we doing this again? What is this levy for? How much is it worth? Is it going to raise my taxes? No, 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 no. But there are people in this crowd who have worked tirelessly on making sure that these levies get passed. There have been volunteer hours and volunteer dollars to try to get this taken care of. A single election could cost anything from $12,000 to $100,000, depending upon the other issues that are on that ballot. So this is where we are. If we pass, hopefully, but if we pass this levy that is on the ballot for this November, it stops. And now our discussion with our community and our stakeholders is the future, the possibilities. The conversation is dramatically shifted from why to why wouldn't we, or why not, or what are the possibilities. And that's what this is all about. And hopefully you get a sense of how this board has set the course for the future in a dramatically different light. Tough chart to see, and I understand that because you're a far distance away, but this talks a little bit about what's been happening in our school district over a period of time. And I'd like for you to focus, if you would, just for a couple seconds on the blue line. We talked a few minutes ago about the money that comes into the school district. The blue line represents pretty much revenue coming into the school district, and it's been flatlined for about 10 years. There hasn't been new money coming into the district. But one of the other things that's significant, and I have been in Cincinnati, and I've been in Columbus, and now I'm proud to be working in Cleveland, Ohio, with school districts across the state, is this red line has gone up dramatically quicker in other school districts that I've been in. This school district has spent a lot of time between these years trying to flatline the budget. $3.5 million reduced in teaching and staffing and programs. $6 million achieved in a concessionary negotiations process, and many other efficiency-based policies and not policies, but procedures and decisions that have been made to try to keep this line flatlined with money coming in and money going out, which has had influence on the yellow line. And as you watch the yellow line, you can see we had money in the bank, we were receiving dollars, we flatlined our spending, we slowed down our deficit spending, and now we're in a place where over the next few years there are potentially projected, this is a projection, could be some changes. And what are those changes? What causes that yellow line to go down? Obviously, insurance is a very difficult thing, very hard to put our thumb on, it's very hard to predict where that's going to be, but you have to build into your forecast that insurance costs most likely will go up. Just regular business inflationary costs associated with that. Our employment compensation freezes will go through the 2015-16 school year. And our strategic vision that we talked about earlier in the program, the implementation of that. Last year, our board approved about $260,000 to be spent for initiatives aligned with the strategic vision. This year, we approved another $140,000. And so as we move down the road, those decisions that are very important, that keep us moving forward, that build that build the possibility to meet the expectation of our local communities and meet the changes in legislation and the mandates that continue to come in our direction, which are causing us to make decisions, that line will be influenced by that. you can't talk about money and you can't talk about the school district if you're not paying attention to the school district's student population. Now, we go back to 2008 and had a pretty good discussion with Mr. Jansen about, he and I agreed, do we really need to go back this far? But it's important for the projection because that does help us make some decisions. We work with a company by the name of DeYoung and Associates that works with us on projections. And back in 2008, the real number of students in the school district, this is an actual number, was 4645. And the projection was that we would drop by 2017-18 about 900 students. And so we are here today. The projection was that we would be down about 679 students, but we were actually down 629. So back when the projections were made, we were supposed to be at about 679 here and about 3,700 down here, and you get a sense of what the projection is. Well, the reality is our current enrollment is 4,025, not 3,975. We have today 4,025 students. The projection in 17-18 is 3,789. So the projection is that we will reduce between now and the end of this chart, 4 more years from now, about 5.8% more of our student population. I want to stop for just a second here because the difficulty for individuals in our community, and oftentimes even the people within our schools, is if those class sizes are reducing, what about your staffing? Is your staffing reducing at the same rate that your student enrollment is? And percentages are good for charts like this, but the reality of kids going away in 25 student increments is very difficult. So you may have a 5.8% reduction over a course of time, but this year we have 50 more freshmen in our high school that we did not have in the projection this school year. Our third grade class required us to add our second grade class required us to add another teacher this year. Even though we're seeing some declines in enrollment, there are anomalies within that cause us to have to place teachers in particular situations. Now, I assure you that we're watching that very closely, but those realities take place within these what seems to be simple reductions that equate to simple movement of staff. So, let's take a look at our staffing in relation to the reductions. And this is interesting, and did spend a good bit of time talking with our board president about this because this tells a lot about the efficiencies within our school system. Back in 2008, if you remember the economic slide a few minutes ago, we had 299 teachers in our school district. And we made some dramatic cuts, $3.5 million worth of teachers and operations in this short period of time. So between 2008 and 9 and 2011 and 12, we reduced the district staff by 14%, and the student population during the same time reduced by 7%. So we reduced 2 times the staff in this short period of time than we actually had in student enrollment reductions. And so as we project out to the future here, you see we have 37.4 teachers less today than we had in 2008 and 9. That represents about a 13% reduction in staff and a 13.5% reduction in students. So over time, we have reduced our staff consistent with our students. But in years like this, that 0.5 that I just talked about in staff, those are those anomalies, and that's how they show up, because we need them in specific sections of our school district, often based on specific needs of students. So I'm proud that we've been able to mirror the reduction in staff with the reduction in students. However, we need to be mindful that when you mirror that closely, you lose flexibility. And when you lose flexibility, it does impact class sizes in certain situations. So we have kindergarten, first, second grade, preschool, kindergarten, first and second grade within our targets right now. And our third grade is exceeding our target level a little bit. But when we get back to fourth and fifth grade, it comes back down. So we see that, and we work with parents to help them understand, why are there 27 third graders in my son's class, when in the second grade there are 24 per class? This is a discussion that we try to have with parents as best we can to help inform them about the decisions that are being made about their students and their opportunities. Facilities. This tells a little bit about our facilities. It tells you what the site is, when it opened, and the age of the building. So we have an elementary at Chippewa that's 53 years of age. Highland is 62. Hilton is 48. Central School is 100 years of age. The middle school is 55. And our newest, most modern, up-to-date, just-built building was 18 years ago. And it's working fine. And so are all of these buildings working fine. However, there are some realities when you have buildings that are averaging 56 years of age across the school district. But we have a permanent improvement, thank goodness. Again, from the graciousness of our voters, we have permanent improvement funds. We have about $800,000 a year that's allocated for buildings and maintenance. And so we're spending we spent $1.9 million between 2012 and 2014 on these items in our buildings. Safety and security is important. That's the sound system, the fire alarms, and things like that. Roofing is pretty obvious. If you have a son or daughter at Chippewa or Hilton or even the middle school, you saw that some work was being done on those facilities to make sure that the roofs are maintained. Asbestos removal. Anytime you replace a roof, you're going to be removing asbestos. And in our school district, at this particular point in time, all of the asbestos from all of our ceilings has been eliminated from all of our buildings. However, when you do any type of reconstruction or when you do any type of tearing down of anything or taking out old tile, asbestos is a big part of the job, and it is an expensive part of the job. But when asbestos is friable and it's in the air, no one can be around. So that's an expensive proposition. HVAC equipment is those pieces and parts that are necessary to keep the building functioning. Anything from a doorknob to a floor cleaner or something like that maintains the facilities. HVAC and lighting. If you go into the middle school guidance counselor's office, you will notice that there's been some renovation in there. You'll see lighting changes there. If you go to Highland, you'll see lighting changes there. At the central office, the board office, there's been some lights changed there, and also at the middle school. It's happening all across our school district, but these are the sort of big expenditures. And then our outdoor facilities. So we spend about $1.9, almost $2 million on that. But 72.2% of every dollar that is spent in this school district is directly related to the classroom. We are rated the 36th out of 211 schools in the state of Ohio for expenditures related to student classroom activities. So yes, that's teachers, that's textbooks, that's all of those types of things, assistants, whatever is aligned with the classroom. 36 out of 611 I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of our teachers, our administrative team, and the guidance that we receive from our Board of Education to stay focused on what is important for our students, and that is the classroom. With that, though, there are some other things that we have done over the last couple of years that I think are important. This year, I talked about insurance a little bit ago and projections, but this year, as a part of our consortium, that we are a member of a 31, I'm sorry, Rick, how many schools are in the consortium? I'm sorry, 31 in the county, 18 in the consortium. We save millions of dollars as a school district, as do others. We were able to save about $350,000 this year on our renewal, which over a 5-year forecast turns out to be about $1.5 million. And that's because of Mr. Burdine and others working in that consortium to push back and to apply pressure and to make good decisions about insurance options available to our staff. Our workman's compensation, just by the way we're handling those things and some investigation that's taking place and some participation in some committees and some work locally, we're able to save $30,000 this year from our typical workman's compensation costs. Little things like a copy contract that you don't think, when a school district, we've saved $221,000 in the last 24 months on copying in our schools. That's a change of vendor. That's a change of the counts on the machines. That's a change of a lot of different nuances that have been worked out in that contract. But $221,000 in 24 months is a lot of money when you think about the classroom and putting that money back in front of students. We have a very good association with the city of Brecksville. This year we did paving. You've probably seen it in many of the places or sites that you go in our school district. You'll see new blacktop, refreshed sidewalk, and things like that. This year alone, we were able to save $98,000 because of the city's generosity in allowing us to use their equipment and use some of their materials, so they cost less for us. So we saved $98,000 this year. We saved $60,000 last year, about $60,000. So over a 2-year period of time, working with the mayor of Brecksville and his staff, we've been able to save another $150,000. You've probably heard about staffing this year and many other decisions that are made, but with our special education department and with our assistants throughout the school district, assistants that are working with teachers in classrooms, not only special education, but other assistants, we've been able to save about $130,000 just by reassigning, realigning, taking a different look at the way we assign students in classrooms and with staffing, about $130,000 there. And it really does sort of go on and on. The efficiencies are part of the responsiveness and are part of the finances that we're trying to make sure that we're protecting for our local taxpayers. There are three final comments that I want to bring up on that efficiency and the money or the dollars that we're saving, the resources that we're saving. 4 years ago, when we had high school transportation, the bill was approximately $400,000. This year, with the new efficiency model and changing some of our routing, attrition within the department, some other ways that we're transporting students that we provide services to outside of our school district that are our students, live in our community, and deserve a quality ride to school, we're able to save another $150,000. So what used to cost us $400,000 now costs us about $250,000, and we have high school transportation back in the building, back in the district. That's important, that we get kids to school so that they can learn. But again, those decisions are made by, and they're not easy to be made, and our Board of Education is very much focused on these types of initiatives because they like that 72% and they'd like to continue to go up. But those are some of the decisions that we're making. And I can say today, even though it was tenuous getting here, I haven't had, I hate to put this on tape, I haven't had a telephone call about transportation in 2 weeks. So I think we've been able to work out all of the bugs with all of the students that we transport back and forth, and we'll continue to monitor and make sure that we're getting kids home safely and in timely fashion. The turf field, I've had a couple of questions over the last couple of weeks about the turf field. I understand you guys are going to be spending a lot of money on the turf field. Well, we talked about facilities a little bit ago. We talked about lights and floors and mats and all sorts of things that need to be replaced. I just want to make sure that you understand from me that we're not going out and raising or looking for or taking out of our general fund $350,000 or $375,000. When the decision was made to purchase the turf field that currently exists, there was an agreement, an expectation of the board that each year the athletic department would add a $10,000 amount of money, so there's $80,000 over 8 years. There's a savings, offset savings, by not having to have maintenance, not having fertilizer, grass cutting, gasoline, all of the things associated with taking care of an outdoor field. It's about $25,000 savings a year. 8 years of $25,000 is another $200,000, which is in our permanent improvement fund, earmarked for that. So we have those dollars there. And we're working now with our athletic department and with our band and with local businesses to raise about the last $75,000 to $90,000 to put a turf field down on the, to replace the turf field. So for us as a school district, it's not a huge expenditure that came upon us and we weren't prepared for it. We have done the right things as far as making decisions back then, holding to those decisions, putting those dollars away, and now coming back for a much smaller portion with those entities that use the field. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention, and just so if you're asked about it, we consider it to be like replacing a carpet in the media center or putting lights in a building that they're not working anymore. Everything has a lifespan. And on that particular field, we've exceeded the lifespan by about 1 year. The last thing is a district calendar. Because of testing and mandates in the state of Ohio, I've asked the Board of Education if we can start our school year next year 1 week earlier, because the assessments in the state of Ohio will require us to do that. Many of the schools in our local area are starting school a week earlier. If that decision is absolutely made, we certainly want to be out in front and make sure that our parents are well aware of that and work with our staffs to make sure that we can get that accomplished. We're trying to meet an expectation of the state, and we, because of all the rankings and all of the performance metrics that I spoke about earlier today, want to try to get our students in the classrooms earlier so that we can continue to have this type of performance. So, we talked about performance. We consistently want to increase our performance, and we're going to do that. We're going to continue to work, as I talked about earlier, the economics. I'm hopeful, I truly am hopeful, that people in our community recognize the level of fiscal responsibility that we are attempting to demonstrate to protect their tax dollars, and the realities. We see that our enrollment is declining. We see that our facilities are aging. We see that we have a 5-year forecast that has a cash balance that in 2018 will be about $3 million. And I know that's a lot of money in our budgets, but $3 million in this organization is about a month. $3 million is about a month of moving forward. And I would like to say before I finish my comments and answer any question that you might have, that the levy cycle that we have achieved, and hopefully we will achieve this coming November, I can't tell you how important that is for the sustainability of our school district and for setting the stage for the future. And I do appreciate that and thank everyone who's played a role in that, small or large. So I thank you all for that. And the last thing that I did not do, that I apologize for, is I did not introduce our board president, Mr. Mark Jansen, our board vice president, Mr. Michael Ziegler, board member Debbie Bernauer, board member Kathleen Mack, and board member Mr. Mark Dosen. And I'd like to thank each of you for all the work that you've done to help guide us and support us in our work to provide the best services for students in our district. Well, thank you very much for coming out, and please pick up a quality profile before you leave this evening. Thank you for your support.